Hi guys, welcome to the fourth lesson of high school biology. So today I'm going to try something different. Instead of giving you guys a lesson on a new topic, I'm going to go over some questions based on what we have learned from the past weeks. So far we have covered the overview of the cell, including the structure and the functions of each organelle, as well as the difference between the eukaryotes and the prokaryotes, and plant cells and animal cells. And lastly, we covered we also covered cell division, or otherwise known as mitosis and meiosis. And lastly, we covered cellular respiration this past Monday, and aerobic and anaerobic. And I have with me 17 questions that will cover the last 3 lessons we have learned, and I'll do my best to explain the questions and answer them. So let's start with an easy one. So this question wants to know the site of protein production. In this scenario, we need to know the functions of each organelle from A to E. Well, if you look at the smooth ER, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, we talked about it before, is the site of lipid production. So it produces cholesterol and phospholipids, but not protein, so smooth ER is out. Cannot be A. Then we have the nucleolus. This organelle is where the components of ribosomes are synthesized, and not protein, so this is out as well. Then we have the ribosome, which is the site of protein production, and so this will be the correct answer. And lysosome is where it breaks down and recycles cell parts, and Golgi apparatus is where it modifies substances from the rough ER. So the answer will be ribosomes then. So the answer for this question is C. Moving on to the next question. So this one asks to find a difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. So I'll give you guys about 10 seconds to look over the answer choices. So as we can see, answer choice A is obviously wrong. A can't be the answer because you might have chosen that one since it is true that only plant cells have chloroplasts, but if you read the next phrase, it states that only animal cells have mitochondria, but in reality, all eukaryotic cells contain mitochondria, so that can't be, the last part is false. That's why we cannot have this answer. And choice B is also incorrect because there are some animal cells, such as fat cells, that also contain only one large vacuole for storage. So B is out as well. C and D is wrong because both animal and plant cells contain a nuclei where RNA is synthesized, and they both have plasma membranes. So the only correct answer would be E, and this is because only animal cells form a cleavage furrow when they divide. Plant cells form a cell plate where they divide but do not separate like the animal cells. Instead, they're stuck to one another by a substance called middle lamella. So the answer for this question would be this, E. Animal cells form a cleavage furrow when they divide. The next question asks what is not true about the prokaryotes, and I'll give you guys 10 seconds to look over the choices. So remember that prokaryotes do not have an internal organelles made of membranes such as nuclei, vacuoles, or mitochondria. So the correct answer here would be E because prokaryotes do not carry a mitochondria, and the only answer choice that says that is E. So E would be the correct answer for this question. The next question asks which of the following answer choices is not true. So I'll give you guys another 10 seconds to look over the question. So choice A is correct, and so are choice C, D, and E. But we're looking for a statement that is not true. So the only answer choice that is not true is B, which states that plants carry lysosomes. This is not true because plants don't need lysosomes and they don't have it with them most of the time. Lysosomes are not commonly found because the cell walls in plants are usually tough enough to keep the foreign substances out of the cell. So in plant cells, lysosomes are basically unnecessary. So the correct answer choice here will be B. Lysosomes contain hydrolytic enzymes for intercellular digestion. We really don't need to read the last phases because we know that lysosomes don't exist in plant cells. Okay, moving on to the next question. So this question asks what does not occur in mitosis, and I'll give you guys 10 seconds to look over it. So remember, there are two processes in cell division, mitosis and meiosis. Yeah, they sound pretty similar, but they have two different jobs. So mitosis divides body cells, not gametes or sperm and egg cells, and that's the job of meiosis. So in this question, B will be correct. B will be the correct answer because mitosis does not produce gametes. So the correct answer for this question will be the production of gametes because mitosis only divides body cells, not gametes. So this question asks us to match the event of mitosis with the stages listed in this diagram. So which stage is metaphase 1 of meiosis? I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to look at it. Well, remember metaphases M stands for the middle. We said that the M for metaphase stands for middle. So this is where all the chromosomes line up in the middle. But this can be tricky because note that this is metaphase 1 of meiosis, meaning that the homologous pairs will line up in a double file. So which diagram correctly displays the stage? It would be choice D, which is right, this one right here. You can see the homologous pairs are lined up in the middle in a double file. Moving on to the next question. So this question is pretty simple, and it asks how many chromosomes are in a cell. Well, to count the chromosomes, the best way to do that is to count the centromeres, because there is one per chromosome. So centromeres are usually the middle here that that connects each chromatids. So in this case, there would be 2 chromosomes because there's only 1 centromere. So the correct answer will be choice B, 2 chromosomes. This question asks which of the following is not found in plant cells. So look at the answer choice. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds. So if you look at the answer choice, we can immediately cross out the middle lamella and the cell plate, since this specifically forms during cytokinesis of a plant cell, not an animal cell. So if you recall, plant cells form cell plates instead of cleavage furrow, and cleavage furrow only happens in animal cells. So in this case, choice B, which is cleavage furrow, will not be found in a plant cell. So B. This question asks to pick out an answer choice that is not true of meiosis in plants. And I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to look at the answer choices. So if you recall back from our lesson, we mentioned that plants do not have centrioles or centromeres. Instead, the spindle fibers connect the chromosome to a microtubule organizing region. So if you look at the answer choice, which of them says that, the answer choice would be C. So C says spindle fibers are attached to the centriole. This is not true, as we have discussed earlier, and that is why this is the answer. Now in glycolysis, we talked about the meaning behind the word glycolysis. So I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to figure this one out. So we talked about the meaning behind the word glycolysis. Glyco means sugar, and lysis means to break down. So if you combine these two words together, it means breaking down sugar. So which of the answer choices correctly states the definition of glycolysis? It will be choice D. It says glycolysis is the breakdown of glucose to produce pyruvic acid. So remember, we had glucose, and this will go into glycolysis, and and then this will divide into two, into pyruvic acid and pyruvic acid. And then from there, we start to have more processes of cell respiration. So this question asks, which of the following is the most important thing that occurs during cell respiration? I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to look at the question, and we'll see. So what is the whole purpose of cell respiration? Why do we do cell respiration? It is so that we can produce energy, or ATP. So which of the answer choices correctly states that? It will be answer choice E. ATP is produced. The next question asks, what is the finished result of electron transport chain? So we did not talk in depth about the whole process of ETC, but we did discuss what ETC creates at the end. So I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to think about that, and we can move on from there. So we discussed in the previous lesson that ETC produces a proton gradient that is later used for chemiosmosis. So the answer choice would be E, a proton gradient is created. That's honestly the main purpose of ETC. The whole process behind it is pretty complicated, but at the end it results in a proton gradient that will later help in the chemiosmosis. Now, this question shows us a diagram labeled processes A, B, and C, and we want to find out what process A represents. So I'll give you guys a couple of seconds. So if you have glucose, what has to happen in order for you to get to the citric acid cycle and the others? Well, you need to break down glucose and in order to create pyruvic acid. Therefore, the answer would be A, glycolysis. As we said it before, glycolysis means breaking down sugar, and we can see that we have glucose, and in order for that to go into the process of citric acid cycle, Krebs cycle, and etc. is to be broken down into pyruvic acids. So the answer for this question would be A, glycolysis. So this question relates back to the previous question and is asking where process A occurs in. And I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to look at that. Well, process A, we said before, the answer is glycolysis. And you might be tempted to say mitochondria because a lot of cycles happen there, such as the Krebs cycle and the etc. But actually, this is a special case because glycolysis actually does not occur in mitochondria. Instead, it occurs in the cytoplasm of all cells. So the answer here would be cytoplasm. So this is the same diagram but different question. This asks what process C represents. So I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to look at that. So first, let's use process of elimination if you guys get kind of stuck on this. We can cross out D and E because this is an aerobic respiration, and alcohol fermentation and lactic acid fermentation only happens in an anaerobic respiration. So we can cross those two out. So with three answer choices left, we already said that process A is glycolysis, so we cross that out too. Then what should process B be in order to find out process C? Well, it would be the citric acid cycle, or also known as the Krebs cycle, because it takes pyruvic acid that is formed in process A, which is glycolysis, and the glycolysis is going to form pyruvic acid, and then that is going to be transformed into acetyl-CoA, which will then mix with oxaloacetic acid in order to create citric acid. oxaloacetic. And then remember, after it is created into citric acid, then it has this whole situation about converting NAD plus into NADH and ATP, producing ATP, FADH, and all that stuff to be transferred into process C. All that good stuff produced in citric acid from citric acid will be transferred into process C, and it will be used as a raw material. And so what happens after citric acid cycle? Well, what happens is that you have the electron transfer chain. And yeah. So Krebs cycle is out because that is process B. So the final answer will be ETC. Okay, so we have 2 more questions to go. This one asks, what is the process that breaks down glucose into pyruvic acid? Well, this is quite simple. I bet you guys can figure it out, so I'll give you guys about 10 seconds to figure it out. Since glycolysis basically means breaking down glucose, as we talked about it before, the answer would be A, glycolysis. If you guys didn't catch that, it's because it is the breakdown of glucose into pyruvic acid. And remember, we said a couple of times that glucose will be divided into 2 pyruvic acids. Pyruvic acid with the process of glycolysis. Finally, we have the last question. And in this question, we have to plug in 2 answers that will make sense. So during a strenuous exercise, skeletal muscles use up blank and produce a large amounts of blank, which causes pain and fatigue in the muscle. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to look at that. So we talked about fermentation before, or the process of cell respiration when oxygen is not present. And there are 2 types of fermentation: alcohol fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. And those 2 are kind of different, so I'll explain it more in depth. Alcohol fermentation is used in the baking industry, where carbon dioxide is formed from the fermentation and would make the bread rise. So that's kind of not the case here, and we don't really see alcohol fermentation in the answer choices, so we can just cross that out. But how about lactic acid fermentation? We do see some lactic acid fermentation here. So lactic acid fermentation happens when in an exhausting exercise, when you don't have enough time to keep up with the increased demand for oxygen. So that will basically cause the soreness and the burning the next day you wake up. So in this question, which of the following answer mentions lack of oxygen and this type of fermentation? It would be choice D. So if we read that all together, during a strenuous exercise, skeletal muscles use up oxygen and produce large amounts of lactic acid, which causes pain and fatigue in the muscle. And as we explained before, lactic acid is what makes your muscles burn when you're in like a very intense exercise. So make sure to stretch, drink water, have plenty of rest. Well, that is it for today, guys. We solved 17 questions in this short amount of time. I hope the questions we solved today clarified any misconceptions or any problems you had. So if you guys have any questions or topics that you want me to go over next time, feel free to comment down below and I'll prepare it for the next lesson. Thank you, and I'll see you next Monday.